Welcome. I'm Brenda, and welcome to Brenda Girl Loves Her Plants because I really do. Today I'm going to do, it's kind of, I feel like I'm going into surgery because I'm working on several plants at once. What I discovered when going through, when you have a big collection, some things get lost in the shuffle and you kind of water them and don't really see the problems for it takes you a minute to see that you've got some problems. I have, these are heart-shaped philodendrons. Look at that, see that leaf just came right off. And I have several with where it's really sparse and it's thin, and they're in the pots that, they've thinned out and making the pots that they're in seem a little too much. Anyway, what I think I'm gonna do is put them all in one pot. And I mean, that happens, especially with philodendrons, because they tend to thin out over time. Some get really bushy and big, and then some just kind of, you keep wondering, well, why is it so thin, or why is it so leggy? They get leggy because they are vines, and they get leggy, and they seem to fit. When they get leggy, it makes them look thinner. They don't have as much volume in the center, they're not as bushy and full. And so I do like a leggy plant. I really do. I like when they get big and I like the long, the leaves hanging down and the stems, the long stems on some. I don't like it on all my plants, but I do. I appreciate a leggy plant. But this is kind of thin leggy. I mean, I guess you'd agree. This is a little pathetic. This is a little bit pathetic. And this one has a neon pothos piece in it. It's just these two, I stuck them in this pot just to save them when I realized they were, a couple months ago when I realized they were having issues, on the larger plants. So I'm gonna condense them all into one pot. And I'm not gonna use a gigantic pot because these plants have thin, philodendrons, they have a thinner, so I'm gonna pull this out of here. And that's, the trick is to get them out of the pot without destroying the root, and getting as much soil off as you can without destroying, because once you get the soil off, you'll see how small the plant actually is under there. So it's just this big ball of dirt, really. See, and then when you get finished, you just have this little small plant here. So what I'm gonna do is put a little dirt. I'm gonna reuse some soil because it's perfectly good. That soil's not from plants that were diseased or anything. They're just from plants that I switched around a little bit, and you didn't need that soil at that time. So okay, so I'm gonna see. I'm gonna put this. This is the largest of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 5 plants that I'm condensing. So I'm really just condensing them all into together because it doesn't make any sense to have a plant this tiny. Look how pitiful that is. In this big pot all by itself, and then I keep watering, and I'm pretty sure that by the time winter's over, I would be throwing that into a compost pile because it would just be washed out. And see, it's just so, look at that. It's just this tiny little thing. It's just really tiny. It's all that's left of it. So by doing this, I hope to save the plant. This is a little different than the one I did the other day when it's kind of the same, but um, what's the difference? I don't know. I guess they are the same. It's the same thing. Face it, Brenda, it's the same thing. But, I just wanted to show you how to do what I'm doing because I know we all have plants. We have several little tiny little pieces, little scraggly. I like the word scraggly. I don't know if that's really a word or not, but I like it. It was a word when I was a kid with my brothers. We used scraggly. And here we go. So I want to find all the pieces. See, look at this. Now that you'd have to say that's scraggly. That's scraggly. So I put that in there. Put all the little scraggly pieces in there. And now this one's a little bigger. I'm thinking about reconsidering condensing this one because it's in a smaller pot. I think this one can survive on its own. So I'm not going to take this one out of here. I'm going to just keep an eye on it and see if it thins out anymore. Because generally when they start to get leggy like this, young, they're tiny, they're small, and they get really leggy. And it's not that they're not healthy. It's just that it's the vine. It's doing what a vine does. And it's just a little too... But that one, I think I like it like that. I think I'm going to leave that one. Now this definitely, because these are just two pieces I put in this pot just to save them. There was like a temporary solution. Because see, this is really just, this is nothing. I'm getting dirt all over my floor here. So another thing about plants, you're always cleaning. I'm sweeping and there's dirt everywhere. If I had my garage was heated and had a window, I think I'd keep most of these, I'd turn that into a greenhouse. And that would be where most of these plants would be. Instead of in my living room, destroying my beautiful floors. But anyway, here we go. So I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm going to gather them together like a ponytail. And I'm going to take some of the soil from one of the older, because it's still moist. I don't want to have to water it right now. So I'm going to just put that soil in there from one of these pots. It's perfectly good soil. The plant wasn't diseased. You can reuse soil. The plant isn't diseased or anything. It's perfectly, we put fresh soil in there, and then the plant, you decide to change it because of the size. Now, if it's a dying plant and you don't know what's going on, or you have rot on some of the roots, then I wouldn't use the soil again. But this soil is perfectly good. It's actually really rich. It has all the nutrients this plant is going to need. And so, voila. Voila. Is it voila or voila? Whatever. So there you go. See, now that makes a cute little, they're all together. And they have a much better chance. And you notice I didn't put them in a giant pot. I put them in a small pot. This is the kind of pot. This will give the roots a chance to really gather themselves, and I won't overwater it. So there you go. And that's a pretty plant. And this one will go back on the shelf, and we'll just see, because I don't think it's not as sparse as the other ones were. So I think I'm gonna just keep an eye on that one. And here you have, well, and that's another way to, if you've got so many plants like me, this time of year, what I'm doing is trying to figure out, where do you go? I can't buy another plant. I don't know where to put another plant. I don't have room. And these were taken, I mean, that was 5 spots for a little teeny little, you know, you know, anyway, they were taking up space, because it's prime real estate this time of year. And finding a spot for a plant where it's getting the light it needs, or just a spot in the room, is tricky. So that was all I wanted to show you today. Just, I thought I'd just do that on camera, because I know there are plenty of people who have those little skinny little straggly little bitty little plants in one pot, this pot. And even if they weren't all, see, these happen to all be heart-shaped philodendron, except for, where's that golden, except for this golden pothos. This is a stranger. This is not, they're in the same genus family, but they're not the same plant. And so even if you have a bunch of, little pieces in this pot and that pot, you put them, and they're different, and they're all different, you could put them together. Now, I wouldn't put a succulent with a philodendron, because then the watering situation is different, because a succulent needs less water than a philodendron needs. And therefore, it's like, there's going to be a conflict. But if they all have the same general watering requirement, I have a lisp that seems to be returning. I thought I had lost that when I was a child, but it seems to be returning. But if they all have the same watering requirements, then then it's really pretty to put several different kinds of pieces in one pot, and then you end up with a nice, full, pretty plant. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. Till next time, peace out.